The primary was just days ago, but already the winners are shifting their focus to November. Some of the biggest races, the race for U.S. Senate and the race for Florida governor. I caught up with NBC6 political analyst Carlos Curbelo to break down the results and the political future of these candidates. Carlos, as always, thanks for joining us here on Impact.
It's great to be with you, Jackie.
So it has officially begun, the road to November. And it started with Tuesday's primary, and at least here in the state of Florida, all eyes are on the governor's race. Not only all eyes in the state of Florida, but across the country, they're looking at this race. And now the incumbent governor, DeSantis, knows who his opponent is going to be, and that's Congressman Charlie Crist. It was a contentious battle between the congressman and the agriculture commissioner, Nikki Fried, but in the end, the polls were right.
That's right. Florida Democrats made a pragmatic decision. They chose a candidate who they believe can put together a winning coalition in November. Charlie Crist isn't the favorite candidate of the progressive liberal base. After all, he was a Republican just some years ago. But Democrats are making a different choice than the one they made in 2018 with Andrew Gillum, someone who really came from that progressive base. Charlie Crist, much more of a centrist candidate, hoping that he could break this streak. Republicans have won the governor's mansion since 1998. Jeb Bush and Democrats have been shut out. They're hoping that Charlie Crist can help them break that streak.
It was a battle with the agriculture commissioner, and now essentially he starts from square one, and in terms of money, the governor has a large campaign chest.
This is a big problem for the opposition party when there is an incumbent. So Ron DeSantis did not have a primary. He has been raising millions and millions of dollars throughout the state, throughout the country for many months now. He's got all those funds ready to spend if needed here in the next couple months. Meanwhile, Charlie Crist has to unite his party, and he has to convince Democrats, not just here in Florida, but national Democrats, that it is worth investing in his campaign, that he can actually win. So when it comes to resources, especially, Charlie Crist is a big-time underdog.
Let's talk about issues. What will be a key issue for Floridians? Do you think it's going to be inflation? Do you think it's going to be Roe v. Wade or any other issue that will be significant when Floridians go to the polls?
So I think Ron DeSantis is going to lean heavily on his performance during the pandemic, on the policies that really helped Florida shine. A lot of people have moved to this state. This state economically recovered much faster than other states that had lockdowns and more restrictive policies. So you'll hear the governor talk a lot about freedom, about kids being in school, businesses being open. And Charlie Crist is going to try to knock the governor off his heels, talk about Roe versus Wade, excite the liberal base of the Democratic Party, perhaps try to tie Governor DeSantis to former President Trump and some of the scandals that have engulfed him in recent weeks. That's going to be the strategy. Now, Democrats have some headwinds. They have the fact that this is a midterm election. There's a Democrat in the White House. Democrats control Congress. Typically, the opposition party does better in those scenarios. And inflation is still a big challenge for most Americans, and the party in power usually gets blamed for issues like that. So big structural advantages for Republicans, but it appears that Democrats are ready to give it a go and to compete here in this state this year.
Another important race for the state of Florida, and that is U.S. Senator. Marco Rubio, the senator, now has an opponent in Representative Val Demings, a former police officer. How do they match up?
Well, you really get the sense that Senator Rubio is taking this race seriously. Val Demings has been able to raise a lot of money. She's getting a lot of contributions from Democrats all over the country, a lot of small dollar contributions. She's been advertising now for some weeks ahead of her primary. So even though Rubio has had a big name ID advantage, Val Demings is starting to become known throughout the state. So again, this is a race where Rubio is a strong incumbent. He obviously does very well with Florida Hispanics, which is a part of the Democratic coalition. So that's a big benefit to him and a challenge for them. But Democrats are confident in Val Val Demings. They believe that an African-American woman with a law enforcement background like she has can really compete in this state. In addition to that, she's from Central Florida, which tends to be the part of the state that swings and determines which candidates win. So a lot of enthusiasm for Val Demings on the Democratic side, some very obvious advantages for Marco Rubio as the incumbent.
Two congressional seats I want to talk about, District 27 and 20. But let's talk about the race with Sheila Sherfilis McCormick, the Congresswoman, who won by just 5 votes in the special election against Dale Honas. Once again, they were opponents in this race. She won clearly this time around. What do you think was the issue for her and for Dale Honas this time around?
Well, the big difference between back then and now is that she was the incumbent, and she had some months in office to get to know people, to raise money, to get out there in the community, really use that power of incumbency. And even though there were some pretty strong attacks against her, she was able to come out on top easily. Why? Because she used that power of incumbency. Once people get in office, it's very difficult to unseat them because there are some major structural advantages that come with being in office. So she cruised to victory when a lot of people thought it might be another close race, as it was after Representative Alcee Hastings' death, when no one knew any of the candidates.
District 27, Congresswoman Maria Elvira Salazar now has an opponent, another Latina woman, in Annette Tadeo. How do they stack up against each other?
So Democrats for a long time have looked to compete in all of the 3 Hispanic districts in South Florida that are represented by Republicans. It appears at this time they're honing in on one, and that they, for some reason, believe that Maria Salazar is her district is the one where they have the best chance. They've nominated someone in Annette Tadeo, who defeated Miami Commissioner Ken Russell. Tadeo has high name ID. She's been on the ballot many times in South Florida. Obviously, she's a Hispanic woman like Maria Salazar, so they see that there's a lot of symmetry in that race. If they can get enough funding behind Annette Tadeo, it could be a competitive race, while also noting that there are powers of incumbency that Maria Salazar has, and that this is a district that has become more red in recent years, more Republican-leaning, and Republicans do have some structural advantages this election cycle because of inflation, because Democrats control the White House and Congress. So Maria Salazar goes in as the favorite, but this is a race that could get close real fast.
And finally, let's take things hyper local. And we're talking about the school board races. Never has there been such an interest in these races. Governor DeSantis endorsed several candidates, and it seems that all of his candidates won in their elections, including one here in Miami-Dade County. That was Marta Perez, who had been in that seat for 24 years. And she was defeated by Monica Colucci, endorsed by the governor.
That's right, Jackie. It's rare that a governor would put such an emphasis and get so involved in local elections. Governor DeSantis, together with his lieutenant governor, Jeanette Nunez, decided that they were going to make school board races a priority this August. They invested in a lot of these races, not only with their endorsements, but they also helped these candidates raise money. And here in Miami-Dade County, incredibly, a candidate that is a political newcomer, Monica Colucci, really had never run for office before, known somewhat in the community, but she didn't have high name ID by any measure, and she's able to knock off, with the governor's support, a 24-year incumbent in Marta Perez, someone who is very well known in the community, who had received strong support in her district over the course of 24 years. So this is remarkable, and it shows that Governor DeSantis and Lieutenant Governor Nunez have a lot of political capital, and that they're willing to spend that political capital even in local races. So big changes coming to the Miami-Dade School Board in November when these new members take office.
Put on your seatbelt. It's going to be a wild ride.
That's right. And we'll be seeing a lot of each other because there's going to be a lot to talk about in the next couple months.
Always great to have you on.
Thank you, Jackie.